first question, which has been submitted to us, and it's actually one for Chris. It's really just if you could give us a wee run through what grants are currently available to clubs to assist, both in the current situation, but also for clubs thinking about longer term sustainability. So even in a post-COVID-19 world. Chris,
so
come in.
Yeah, no problem, Mark. So as we all know, challenging times we're facing now. Just to provide a bit of context on the current funding landscape in Northern Ireland, at the moment we're in what we would call the emergency response phase. So really that means there's the suspension of the usual grants that we would see out there in the usual calendar year. And a lot of grants have changed their focus from whether it's mental health, cross-community good relations. They've changed that to now place an emphasis on addressing those immediate challenges associated with COVID-19. Some have also ceased altogether and deferred their grants until a later date, maybe September, October, that sort of thing. So that's kind of where we're at the moment, which places further challenges on clubs, of course, as well, with knowing where are the grants right now for us. One thing we can do, as I said, the priority now is on addressing those immediate challenges. And one of the key things, obviously, is the health and well-being of the community and the communities that we're in. Particularly with older people and those that are otherwise vulnerable in the community, those are the ones that we've placed an emphasis on. So really one of the questions, first of all, to kind of ask yourselves or to go back to your committees within your hockey clubs is, are we in a position where we can realistically or feasibly look at serving our community in terms of addressing those immediate challenges? Can we go out and deliver the likes of food packages, household goods and that sort of thing? It might be something you're interested in, it might not be. With my own current client base, some have and some have simply shut up shop for now, and they're just kind of waiting for this, for things to get back to normal. So that's maybe the first thing. And if it is, it could be something maybe to put in the comment box there to say that it is something that you guys have been discussing in terms of wanting to help out maybe the older people in your community, and then we can look at some of the things that are currently available to you to go away and look at to apply for yourselves. So that's the kind of phase we're in right now. So in terms of what grants are available to me right now as a club, it would be those that are addressing those challenges. We don't know when, but the next phase that some funders have been terming is the recovery phase. And again, that's when we'll see the reintroduction of the usual grants that are out there throughout the year. In terms of your council grants, those through the Community Foundation and I, which we'll come on to. But the issue being right now is that we don't really know. In terms of the immediate support that is available to you right now, unfortunately, it is untimely in that a couple of grants that are out there have closed as of 2 days ago. There, the Sport NI Hardship Fund, which some of you might have come across. It did apply to those who have their own facility or leased on a facility. So again, some who maybe didn't fall through that net. The other one was the Retail, Hospitality, Tourism and Leisure Grant. £25,000 for those that have a particular rateable value, which again some of you might have come across, but again both those are closed now. So that kind of answers that question in terms of what's available to us right now in terms of supporting us through this immediate period, particularly in terms of your running costs. There are other grants out there if you were maybe to adapt your services, the likes of using Zoom, a good way of keeping engaged with your members, especially if it is younger people, and trying to keep those engaged, especially now when they're off school. The likes of using Zoom for health and wellbeing sessions can be something. So there are a range of funders out there for that, which I can go on to as well. So I suppose I've got a list here of council grants, but most of them, as I say, are closed right now. But this is something I can pass on. Hopefully, Mark, we can share the list of live links here. I've got the 11 councils down here and each of their links to their funding portals. Most of them use a platform called eForms, so they're quite handy. The council grants would be your bread and butter grants. So that if you are completely new to funding, that's a good starting point, I think. So that could be something to take away to kind of get familiar with your own respective funding portal and look to see what's out there right now.
Okay. Just so Chris has kindly sent me through some information which I'll share widely, probably through our social media as well, just to outline some of the things he's talking about. But if you want to jump in again, sorry, Chris.
Yep, no bother. And so again, as Mark said, he can share those, and you can go and look at those and get familiar with those. They do. The good thing is understanding when these grants come out. You can provide a bit of an overview for yourself and your club in terms of when these grants will come out and when you can start to plan. There are a number of grants here too I've got for when we start to get back into normality as well. Quite a few of them open around the Halloween period or just before. So now might be a good time to look at these and understand if they apply to your own club and what you can apply for. So there's a range of grants out there for equipment. They run coaching programs, mental health, cross-community activities if it's something that you can do and maybe link in with another group. So again, Mark can pass that along as well. And because they do open up around September, October, I think for me, and certainly this is something I would tell a lot of the groups that I would work with, now is a good time to plan in terms of, if we do want to do so, if we want to apply for a grant, how do we know that there's a need for it? And that is a big thing that funders want to see. So for me, the big thing I've got down here is looking at a needs analysis in terms of an online survey. It's your most basic and effective way of gathering needs, especially as a group of volunteers when it can be time consuming to do these sorts of things. So the likes of SurveyMonkey and Google Forms, if you want to note those down, those are good platforms for gathering surveys for your club. And it's really the key things you want to get across is what do our club members and what does the community want to see? What are the issues that they are faced with currently? And how do they think it could be addressed? And the good thing is, I suppose we know within your own club, what the community might want and what your members might want, but there might be also those unanticipated things that you find, which is also useful as well. And again, to be able to document that in an application form, it's going to really strengthen your case, in terms of securing income. So now I think more than ever, we're all at home. We're a bit more housebound than we usually are. We're on our laptops. Now is a good time to get those surveys out and try and get responses in, especially when we see here that a lot of grants will start to reopen around September, October towards Halloween. Hopefully by then you'll have had your survey out for a couple of months. You can get your findings back, and by then hopefully you'll have a lot of good information to go into your grants with and document. So that would be a key thing for me. Online surveys out to your club and your community. And as I say, SurveyMonkey and Google Forms, they're two good platforms that are free and allow you to gather information quite quickly and easily.
Okay, listen, thanks a lot, Chris. Hopefully a lot of information in there. As and when grants become available, we'll commit from an Ulster Hockey perspective to making our clubs aware of them more through our social media platforms. And Chris certainly will keep us engaged and aware of what's going on. A second question, just to carry on from that, Netball NI have been pretty good from what I can see at gaining grant applications in the clubs and the governing body. I would like to invite Jeff to come in and give another sports perspective on some of the things that Chris was talking about. Jeff.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. So I'll give you a sort of a broad overview of what we've been doing during this time, and maybe some thoughts at the end. So the first thing that we did is we basically looked at what grants are out there from local government and from central government, and at the end of the day, majority is from central government. So we applied for the hardship funds. We did that really quickly, and we were successful with that. Then we started to look at other COVID-19 funds, and we're thinking of it from a point of view of participation. So how can we do something that's out there from a funding point of view, linked to our strategy? There is no point in applying for funds to chase the money. So that's not what we're about. It's all about what's in our strategy and how can we link a funding stream around that. So one that Chris from S3 Solutions has helped us with is the Halifax Foundation, because we're a registered charity. So we have really put a big effort to really focus on that. Last year we were successful, and now we're moving to the next stage in that process. So we've got the Hardship Fund, the Halifax Foundation, and there's about another 3 funds that we've identified that we're working alongside with Chris on, that's linked into our strategy of doing increased participation. So that's the first thing, is applying for those grants. So the second thing it is, and this is going to sound a bit maybe strange, especially coming from a marketing guy, we didn't go to our sponsors and say, would you give us more money? What we did is we went to our sponsors and we said, how can we help you? So some of our sponsors, PricewaterhouseCoopers, and a few other ones, Drain Farms. And what we did then said, the assets that we have is basically the fitness. So why not use netball, little videos that we can give to our sponsors that gives to and out through to their employees. And that's all about that engagement, and that we're in this together. And I think from a sports point of view, and many clubs may or may not think of this, they are doing it, but now is a time that we need to be ingrained in our community. That's exactly what a lot of sports organisations are about. Lurgan Rugby Club, never really knew much about Lurgan Rugby Club, and I'm in Lurgan until the COVID-19, and my perception of them is totally changed, totally positive. They're out in the community giving out food parcels. They are in their community doing things in their community, and people will remember that. So this is the time to build up that real community activity. So we're doing that with netball, with our sponsors. Next thing we're doing is we're looking at strategic planning. Yes, we're looking at strategic planning. We think this is the perfect timing. So we are now, we have talked to media, we've talked to sports organisations, we've talked to schools about what does our strategy need to be, not only during COVID-19, but more importantly, post-COVID-19. So we will be launching in September a 5-year strategy that has got full consultation. So in other words, what are we missing out on? Now, you as a club might say, but I'm a club, I'm not a federation. I'm involved at Crumlin United, doing the same. How can we develop now our club development plan and our fundraising plan now? Now's the time to do that. Other things that we're doing is that we're engaging with our coaches and our umpires via coach education programs. And that's good because that's engaging our clubs, that's engaging our coaches. But for me now, if I take my commercial hat on, that now becomes a new digital asset. So how can we look to commercialize that digital asset next year or the year after or further on? I think then the other bit of really looking closely at our costs. And again, I know that's not really on the income side, but looking at our costs, making sure that we've got a budget in place for this year, which we do. And every month we go through every line to make sure that we're managing our costs and we're not spending where we should not be spending. And that again is really important to us. And then the last two things I would say, we're looking at digitalization. So we're digitalizing a lot of our processes that we would have done manually. So for example, membership schemes are taking money. We're doing as much as that as possible electronic and using digital. That saves us time. Saving us time saves us costs. And the last thing we're looking at, and we've just had one organization approach us, we're looking at new digital opportunities. This is the idea to look, and this is the time to look at new digital opportunities. Can we get a sponsor and work with them not only in the community but on digital platforms? So how can we get them to partner with us on coach education? How can we use the collective buying power of our clubs, the collective buying power of our members, and start to create and sell products? What do I mean by that practically? Well, if you're a club and you're sponsored by a chippy, well, why not get the chippy guy to give you offers that go out to your members that say the delivery home service for the chippy, special offer for your members on a Tuesday. So you're using your channels to market, you're using your digitalization, and you're satisfying a partner or a sponsor's need. So those are the broad things that we're doing with netball. We're not doing everything right, but without doubt, it is a long-term approach we're looking at here. Definitely not a short-term approach.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot for that, Jeff. Good to hear an insight from just another sport. Now, I suppose there might be, now I know Ulster Hockey are in this position, and there may be a number of clubs out there who aren't doing anything in terms of activity at the moment. Some of that activity might be sponsored, and one example is we are sponsored in the under 18 girls, I think, through Linwoods. So I would just like to invite Christine Jameson from Linwoods to just give you a little bit of thought from a sponsor's perspective of what you could be doing to continue to engage your sponsors, keep them on board whilst you're not delivering the core thing that you've kind of agreed. And Jeff can come in then on the back of that if he's got anything to add. Okay, Kristen.
Okay. Well, I think, Mark, you just mentioned there in terms of engage, and that's probably one of the most important things that you need to be doing with your sponsors at the minute. You need to be communicating with them, you need to be talking to them, and you need to be letting them know the situation that you're in so that they can understand and so that you can understand their business. So from a Linwoods point of view, obviously we're in the health food sector. Health is on everyone's mind since COVID has hit. So we're actually in a very fortunate and a very optimistic, in a very good situation to be able to engage our customers. And we actually have seen growth over the last few months since COVID has actually hit. So a lot of sponsors and a lot of marketing peers have been in a situation where they've had to lay off staff and they've had to pull budgets, and it obviously is a real concern. The first thing to go will be sponsorship, because it's usually one of the biggest. So it's so important that you're talking to your sponsor to let them know what your plans are long term. Obviously, if you look at the Linwood sponsorship, we sponsor the under 16 girls, but also the Masters activity. And obviously that activity at the moment is going to be on hold. So it's really about thinking together with Ulster Hockey, what can we do as two companies to really be able to engage our communities, be able to give them something. For us as a sponsor to be able to get the visibility and the branding opportunities, which obviously we want to get, but also that we're able to give something back to the Ulster Hockey community there and to be able to get some visibility. So one of the things that Jeff has touched on there is digital, and social media is an absolutely huge opportunity for any hockey club at the moment. If you have your own page and you're able to create engaging content for your community, to really be able to build that at the moment at a time where people are online more than ever before. People are looking for things to keep them entertained. I know myself, I have 2 young boys that are primary school age that absolutely love hockey, and they're out with their hockey sticks at the side of the house every day, hitting against the wall. What kind of content could we be creating? Could we be engaging parents to start some kind of challenge, getting a hashtag up there, getting people to share content and really get visibility for your club, but also for your sponsor. So there's absolutely loads of opportunities, but I think the most important thing is really the communication with the sponsor now. Lay it on the table that what we had planned isn't going to work, but we obviously don't want to lose the sponsorship. How can we adjust it? What can we do in the short term and the longer term to be able to build upon this at a very challenging time, to be able to that relationship and build that relationship both between yourselves but also with the wider community.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Clubs have got to get away from the mindset, give me money, I'll take it in and then I go. This is about not sponsorship, it's about partnerships. That communication, couldn't agree more. And suppose some of the things that I've just written down in the back of what Chris was saying there is that, on the back of communication, you've got to be in the community, and your sponsor more than likely will be in the community. So depending on what product that they sell, how can you help them to get not only brand awareness, but people driving and delivering, to their product? Because sponsors more than ever will want people to come to their business because they have been closed for so long. So how creative and interactive, can you do that? What I'm seeing is lots of organizations utilizing, without doubt, new digital assets. Without doubt, they're doing webinars, they're doing other things that they never would have done, and then they're getting those commercialized by having a sponsor being part of that, but not just sponsoring the webinar, for example, whatever to members. It's much deeper than that, and I think, you know, for me, it's that there are other ways to generate income using digital, be that 50/50 online draws, be that online, you know, lotteries, etc., etc. But probably the first bit that I would say is you've got to communicate with your sponsors. You've got to ingrain them into the community as well as your club. You've got to commercialize those assets, and you've got to manage your costs, keep your costs down.
Jeff, can I just jump in there just on that point? So just to give you all an example of that, Linwood's seeds obviously are large seed packets, but we do have 15 gram sample packets. So what we've been doing is we've been donating those to the NHS. So we've been giving them to shelters, we've been giving them to care homes. So Chris mentioned there about getting out into the community and maybe doing drop-offs and helping people obviously that are in need. That's a perfect opportunity to be engaging with a sponsor like ourselves to say, we're actually doing this out in the community. Can you support us? Can you help us? Because we want to be there. We want the visibility. We want to be able to help people, but we're also adding value to what you're doing. And I suppose that's a key point as well, is that you're adding value to this relationship, whether it be giving the value to your to us as a sponsor by giving us opportunities online or offline in the community, whichever, but also that you're adding value to your community and your members, and you're letting them see that, you know, you're still there for them. The hockey club may be closed now, but there are opportunities for you as a community get together, because there'll be a lot of people. I know my own parents still go and watch my brothers play hockey, and they really miss that interaction on a Saturday. They miss having their friends down there that they talk to every Saturday. So there'll be lots of opportunities online. I know that a lot of clubs do like fireside quizzes and stuff. There's absolutely no reason why those can't be done on Zoom. There's absolutely no reason why you couldn't create a virtual coaching session for kids, or there's masses and masses of opportunities. It's really just about trying to be creative, get a couple of people together and think outside the box. What were you doing? Everyone's missing that potentially you could bring online and get the sponsor involved as well.
Thanks a lot, Kristen and Jeff, coming in there.
Sorry, Mark, can I just jump in as well?
Yes.
Just from a grant's perspective too, I think the big thing, Kristen and Jeff, you both mentioned there, it's just about being creative online, you know, and engagement is the key thing we're seeing here. And certainly from a grant's perspective as well, it was mentioned there about online coaching sessions. Those are the sorts of things that can be funded as well. The big one from my experience in the past 6 or 7 weeks, if you look at the Community Foundation NI, their coronavirus fund, Community Foundation NI coronavirus fund, it's a big one for being able to deliver online sessions and get funded for that. And the good thing is too, it might be done already on a volunteer basis, you know, so that can be done, that the volunteer can actually be paid for that, and that money can then be recycled back into the club. And then that's a good method of direct savings for the club as well. So as well as engaging with the sponsors, there are methods here using grants to have those sorts of things paid for and money to be recycled back into the club. But definitely that grant itself, that would be a big one to consider if that's something that you can feasibly do in terms of utilising Zoom. I think Zoom is currently around £12–13 a month, £120 a year possibly. Those are the sort of things that can be funded as well through these sorts of things too, as opposed to the club having to pay for it themselves.
Okay, listen, thanks a lot, Chris, Kristen and Jeff. Listen, final sort of question that I've got from before the sessions, and this is one for Emma, who's been sitting sort of patiently and quiet. Really, just if you could give us a flavour of what sort of Hockey Ireland are doing to continue to maintain their profile, to look at sort of fundraising, what maybe some of the clubs in some of the other provinces are doing, and just, you know, how the challenge is being faced on a national basis. Emma? Yeah,
sure. I suppose I can only really speak for ourselves in Hockey Ireland on this, but it's a like Kristen and Jeff have hit the nail on the head there. It's all about relationship management with your existing sponsors. So for any club out there who's listening and they have an existing sponsor, like keeping those lines of communication open are absolutely vital. Like the way we're looking at some of our sponsors now is some of them are okay, but we've been in touch with them all the same. Some of them are struggling, and now it's become much more of a partnership in that you've supported us on our journey so far, and now it's our turn to support you. And it creates a very good relationship then going forwards. You know, it's all about your long-term relationship with your sponsor. So for example, Saba is it's a healthy Thai restaurant in Dublin, and obviously they've been closed since the COVID measures came in, but they've been able to reopen their takeaway. And something different that we've been able to do that we probably wouldn't have done otherwise is they have an Instagram channel, and they've actually gone out. They've done it twice now, is to 2 Dublin-based women's players with a bag full of ingredients, dropped it at the door, given them the login for their Instagram channel, and the 2 girls then will go live and have a head-to-head cook-off. And that's something that we've never done before, but it's been creative, it's keeping the relationship strong, and it's helping us support the sponsor, you know, as almost as like a thank you for their support to us, but also keeping that relationship really good. So that's just one example. There's also things you can do, like maybe a little case study, or if you have a particular sponsor that who comes back to you and says, oh, you know, things aren't great at the moment, and or we're struggling here or we're struggling there, but we are doing this. Like another example we have is OPRO is the sponsor for the gum shields for the national teams. And obviously they had to close their production lines as well. So what they ended up doing was donating all their 3D printers to the NHS to print face masks. So they came back to us and said, well, this is what we're doing now, and can you help us share that story? And of course that's a story we're delighted to help share. And you know, it makes you proud that they're sponsoring you in the long term as well. So those are examples of how you can support sponsors that you might have, whether it's the local shop down the road, or the shop that sells all your kit, or does the logoing. You know, there are different ways you can help people, but it's those long-term relationships, and whether or not you realize it, it's not just that sponsor that notices these things. So in 5 years down the line, someone might say, oh, I remember when Hockey Ireland, when things weren't great for everyone and they supported their sponsors via XYZ, or you know, our hockey club, they supported their sponsors via XYZ. So these are things people notice. Even Jeff talking about Lurgan Rugby Club, and that, you know, 5 years down the line, people are going, when Lurgan Rugby Club go looking for sponsorship, you can guarantee people will remember this type of thing. So do contact any sponsors you have existing, and just say, you know, is there anything we can do to help? Maybe it's as simple as a little case study online. They gave us a few £100 last year, or a few £1,000, whatever it was, for whatever project, and that helped us to XYZ, and we really appreciate that. And if you can do something to help this business, we'd love if you could. So that's kind of where we are in existing sponsors. It's really all about that relationship management. In terms of new sponsors, it's an awkward one at the moment. I know that's kind of the question a lot of clubs have, is will they be able to get sponsorship? And it's a weird and awkward to be approaching new sponsors, is my honest opinion anyway. But that's not to say it's the wrong thing to do, but I would say you need to be very clever about who you approach and when, and maybe your approach is actually more of a long-term approach. So obviously at the moment there's no hockey being played, and hopefully that's something that will be rectified sooner rather than later, but you know, that's something we also can't answer yet. But maybe you're looking at a sponsor for next year, or later this year. So if you start engaging people now and kind of creating that relationship, and saying, look, I recognize now mightn't be time, but we have to do something down the line. That's, you know, just start building those relationships, because a lot of it is just having that communication with someone. So there's no harm in approaching someone for term and putting the feelers out there and kind of growing that network of potential sponsors. So I think Onside released a report yesterday, and they did notice that it was 56% of Irish sports fans are more inclined to support companies or brands who continue to support their favorite sports events and teams through sponsorship during the COVID environment. So that is something that businesses are aware of. But like Kristen said herself, sponsorship is one of the first things to go, but it is always something that businesses are aware of. It's almost a corporate social responsibility. It's a way of engaging with different audiences. If you're a community-based organization, it's very, like, sponsorship is brilliant for you because it gets you right into your target audience. So it's just about being smart about who you approach, when you approach them, how you go about your approach. You know, it's just more likely looking at the next 12 months rather than the next 12 weeks when you're applying for or looking for sponsorship in the future. That would be my opinion on it. But that's not to say if you approach someone, they could be delighted to do it, but I imagine that might be a little bit rare in the current climate. But there are other things that you can work on in the meantime to help for when we are back to, or when there is a return to play the hockey, and when it is a bit more of an easier time to be looking for sponsorship. There's things like, Jeff was saying, all that strategic planning, and I suppose you're developing different digital avenues. Those are things you can really focus on now, because when you go to approach a sponsor, two things can happen. They'll either know who you are, which is great, that puts you in the front step, or they won't know who you are and you'll have to explain who you are. If you have to explain who you are, that's fine. But what's really beneficial if you have to explain who you are is to have a really strong, as professional as possible, clear information on your website, strong social media channels. These things make a difference when you're approaching a sponsor. I'm sure Kristen will be able to say that as well. If someone comes to them looking for sponsorship, it helps if they know who they are. So things like, is your website up to date? Is it user friendly? Can you find information on it easily? Does it reflect everything your club does? Because your club is part of the community. So is it just maybe your club plays in the EYHL and you have an under 16 team that's pretty strong at the moment? Does your club just reflect those two teams? Or is it easy for me to find information on the social hockey league that you're running, or the under 8s team, or all those things as well? Because if I go onto your website and I can't see that, then I think that your audience is just in relation to those top leagues, that top team. So by being able to portray your whole club and how it integrates into the community, I can see the wider audience there, and I can see that if I sponsor you, it's going out to a much wider audience than just that niche that's interested in the high performance aspect. So there are a few other things. I suppose it comes down to strategic planning as well, and your social media. And I know it's a big job as well sometimes, or it sounds daunting if you're a volunteer-led club and you have a volunteer public relations person. But there are really simple things you can do right now, as in go out to your club members and say, is anyone, or does anyone have a family member who is perhaps an amateur photographer or videographer who likes to capture footage or would like to capture content? And are they good at it? Is it something that they would be like to get to play hockey and take some pictures of the match that we can use and they can add it to their portfolio? And we have quality action shots, so we can use those on our social media, we can use them on our website. And it's not an expense to us, but someone else has gotten an experience out of it, but we've also gotten the benefit from it too. So there are little things like that you can do during these times. It's just, network within your club even, and within, I suppose, the members and the committee. Just do people in our clubs have these skills, and would they be happy to assist when we return to play? And how can we use these skills to the benefit of our club? I suppose those are probably some of the main things. I suppose the last thing really would be, if you are approaching a sponsor, it's just to be realistic in terms of what you're looking for at the moment. Like I said, my own recommendation would to be looking a little bit more long term. Not to say that there isn't much out there at the moment, but it is a difficult time for a lot of community-based businesses. So just that would be something to be aware of. Just be realistic. Think about what kind of rights you can offer. Is it the branding and the front logo of the shirt, or is it maybe semi-permanent branding in the clubhouse or around the pitch? Because each of those things will have different values. And just maybe the final thing would be to note, is there someone on your committee who is in charge of keeping track of who has approached who and what the answer has been? Because there's nothing worse than 5 different people approaching the same person, the same business 5 different times and being told no every single time, and them getting more and more frustrated each time. So if that would be a really, really good thing to have as well. Just even a 1-pager, we approached XYZ. Unfortunately, they can't sponsor us now. We approached XYZ and they'd like us to come back in a month's time, or we approached ABC and they want more information. We approached ABC and they're delighted to come on board. So whatever that is, it's a really simple form, just 1 A4 page, have it in a Google Doc or something for your committee, and that way you're all on top of it. So I suppose that would be kind of my take on things at the moment, and some little pieces of advice. I'm sure I can pop those up in a few notes and send them on to Mark if anyone wants any more in relation to that, or if anyone else in the panel has anything to add or discuss there, that'd be great.
Yeah, I think, Emma, you've hit the nail in a lot of those areas. And I know maybe some clubs, they maybe want, is there a silver bullet here? The answer is probably not. But what you can do is, this is the time, when this happens, I think this is the time when we've got to innovate. And those people that innovate, they're the ones that see the front end. And the 2 things I'll just touch on innovate, to me is, number 1, and I mentioned it, is we're now all creating digital assets, whether we like it or not, or whether we understand it or not. For example, within netball and the other sports organizations that I work with, they're all going on to Zoom. They're doing club calls, they're doing coaching calls. That is an asset. And how can you digitalize that asset? That may not be straight away, that might be a year down the road, but how do you digitalize that? And so that's one innovation I think clubs should look at. And I think the other one is now the time that we really seriously look at collective buying. And you know, for me, I've mentioned this before in some of the places that I spoke at, everybody wants to save money by collective buying on water bottles or on kits or on ever. But when you get down to nitty gritty, they've either got somebody they always buy from, or they've got, and I get all of that. But now's the time to innovate. So is now the time where the clubs come together and basically then say, do you know what? Yep, let's go and buy from the same kit partner. Let's go and buy from the same insurance company. So whether that reduces costs or whether they can get costs, whether that is can we go to the same mobile company, whatever that may be, is this a time that we can innovate by collectively buying together? So to me, I think, in addition to the other bits and pieces that was said, which were just all fantastic, now's the time to innovate. You know, there's no silver bullet, but those who innovate, that are doing the digitalization, that are doing maybe the collective buying, that are engaging in the community, that are engaging with the sponsor, they're the ones that will probably be stronger at the end of this.
And even that piece on innovation, like with your, I suppose, your digital presence as well, like there are a lot of free tools out there that can help. Like the likes of Canva for little infographics. It can just add a bit of a consistent touch for with your club logo, and I suppose you probably want to pick 2 or 3 of your club colors and try and keep that kind of across the, like your club is a brand in itself. And then there's things like Adobe Sparks, which can, I think it must be Liz Nagarby, one of the clubs you must be using Sparks for their upcoming matches for the weekend. It's just a short little video, but it's basically a quick PowerPoint, but it's a free software that you can download or you can log in and use, and they're very straightforward. They might take maybe a half an hour or so to kind of figure out, but once you have your head around it, they're really useful. They can be really engaging rather than just a static image, and again, images are more engaging than text. Video is likely more engaging as well once it's a quality video. So just on the innovation note, Like there are ways you can innovate without having to go out above and beyond. Essentially, sometimes simple is better. But all these things add to your kind of the professional, are not professional, but your clear and open communications about who your club is and what it does and who the audience is, which again, when you go out and look for a sponsor, they will either recognize immediately or have to go and look. And if they can look and see that, it'll make a difference.
Okay, listen, thanks a lot, Emma. Certainly for me, there's a takeaway that Ulster Hockey has a sponsor, I won't name them just at this point, who have been doing quite a lot out there in the community. In fact, I will mention who they are, is Denman International. I think they've realigned their business from hairbrushes and plastic parts for fighter jets. And what they're now doing is they've been doing a lot of work, in terms of doing PPE equipment, shields, things like that. So I think that's something that we've maybe missed the opportunity to date to push out there, but certainly, it's something we'll move to.
I wouldn't say it's too late.
We'll still push it, and I see, my marketing expert Andy Brown's on here, so he could be tasked with looking at that going forwards. He's not got his photo up, so I don't see his reaction. But listen, I suppose what we'll do now, we can move forwards on to some. There's been a couple of questions started to come through. First one I'm seeing is from David Cruikshanks. David, up in the corner of my screen anyway. And the question is, what contact has Ulster Hockey made with government, both Stormont and councils, to see what support for sport will happen? So that's probably not one for the panel, one for myself, unfortunately. We have been engaging as widely as possible, both with Sport NI and sitting on basically what's called an all-party working group, which is facilitated through the Sports Forum. The purpose of those groups has been to put forwards some of the issues that sports are facing, some of the threats that sports are currently facing, really just to advocate that message out there of the real reality sort of facing sports and the clubs. So from that, we've been looking very closely. There's been a lot of advocacy around, first of all, getting some of the government emergency grants available to sports clubs. So they were successful in getting the 25k business grant made available. There was a lot of advocacy around getting the 10k grant available. And further to that is Sport NI are currently developing a fund which they are going to open in the not too distant future to assist sports to get back out of the issue they're in. So we're actively involved in wider groups like that. We feel there's no point in sports going individually to government and to Sport NI, and it's better collectively. So through the Sports Forum, it's all being very much coordinated. And I know Jeff's on here, and there is a representative of another sport who I think has also been, that sport has been involved in each of those processes. So as time moves along, we will continue to stick ourselves out there and use our contacts both within Sport NI, government and the Sports Forum to ensure that hockey's getting its voice heard at that point. Next step is obviously to move on to the return to sport. And you would have seen today Sport NI have released a framework. Don't have much more to say about that at the moment, but we are very close to developing a very clear protocol for hockey to return to sport as well. And as soon as we have something final and it's signed off, it will be provided to clubs as well. And that's more from the sport perspective. But if we're looking at an income generation part of that, that will allow you to get back to some form of limited activity in terms of what you're looking to do. David, does that answer your question? Spot on. Okay, next one that's come in, I just need to work through here. You'll be aware that Chris has put up a little information on the chat bar about the Community Foundation NI fund. It's there. Next question from Ian, and it's possibly for Jeff and Kristen, as you can see. So if you're having online funding through draws and lotteries, are there any of current, these would include sponsors, is that worth doing? Is it something that's worth offering sponsorship around things like lotteries and draws? And we'll just throw that one out there. If you want to come in then, Kirsten. Okay, so
Sorry.
Kirsten.
I was muted there. I'm just seeing they're possibly offering product as a prize. In terms of actually sponsoring the likes of the draws and the lotteries, I suppose that would be up to the individual sponsor, you know, to approach them. I'm sure there would be companies that would be happy with doing that. From a Linwood's perspective, we probably wouldn't be keen on sponsoring the actual draw or lottery, but we certainly would be keen to be included in giveaway prize. So that may be you know, a month's supply of Linwood seeds and a NutriBullet, or you know, it could be, I don't know, there's lots of different opportunities that, you know, we could supply to different clubs. So it could be even a 6-month supply to a certain team within one of the clubs or something. So again, I suppose at this time it's about communication and speaking to the sponsors and just saying, well, would you be keen to sponsor it? And if you're not keen to sponsor it, can you help us in some way by donating or assisting? So you might find our product obviously would be suitable because we could actually provide you with it and it's suitable for all ages, but you may have other sponsors that they couldn't physically give you something, but they may donate a you know, a cash prize like a voucher for a supermarket or an online retailer or something.
Yeah, and just to back that up, Ian, yes, there are online lottery or online fundraising campaigns that do and include a sponsor or a sponsor's prize or both. Some people don't like the lottery side because of the betting angle, so that's what I would say on that. But you can do like a Just Giving, or it could be a crowdfunding, and those type of digital ways are becoming more popular. There's a couple of clubs in Scotland that have went down not only the 50-50 lottery draw, but also the crowdfunding to keep their club afloat. So those things can be looked at, and I think for those clubs that can do it, I think they should be looked at. Try it, test it. But really a lot of it is about what is their channels to market, because if a club only has 100 people on Facebook, the numbers are going to be limited. They really need as many people as possible, and that gets back to, you know, building up your digital assets, which I've talked about before.
Thank you very much, Jeff and Chris, and hopefully a bit to think about there for some of the clubs. Next one again is David's. So the collection of membership systems, can Ulster Hockey take a lead and then have an integrated system? David, can I ask you to come in and just sort of tell me a bit more of your thinking just on that question?
Okay, yeah. People have come to us before and tried to sell us membership systems to make life easier. We run it just on a spreadsheet, but we're too small to buy a system. One of the other presenters was saying about collective purchase. So if Ulster Hockey were to look into it, collectively purchase a system, now maybe other clubs already have this, so that could be a way in, made easier for Ulster Hockey, then offer it as a collective system down to clubs, then it may be easier for Ulster Hockey to administer themselves as well.
Okay, listen, I think that's a very fair point in one sense. I know Emma could come in if she has any knowledge that, you know, Hockey Ireland have gone down the line of using a GoTo membership. Is it Go membership, I think. It's still not been sort of flattened out how well it works yet, but once, you know, systems like that, we know how well they work, you know, we would be happy. We just have to be a little bit careful in terms of what we endorse in case it's not the right thing for clubs. But listen, I think you're making a valid point there, and it is something that we would take on and consider doing without a doubt.
I would, just to come in, I actually think that's a great idea, but it would be up to Ulster Hockey then to, in essence, rent that out to the clubs, or the clubs pay a fee or a transaction, you know, because that it has to be funded some way. But to use the collect, and it was myself, sorry, I just didn't get your name, David. It was myself that mentioned about collective buying. So I actually think that's a nice idea, but there would need to be some way about what the model is to make it work, where clubs would provide a smaller fee, or it's a fee on the transaction to make it happen. I think the wider bit I was thinking of is insurance of players, insurance of facilities, maybe it is kit costs. So any of those major costs that most clubs can do, now's the time to collectively buy and collectively work together. Is there heartaches and headaches in doing that? Absolutely. But now's the time to innovate, because needs must.
Okay, thanks a lot, Jeff. Hopefully that's given you a good answer. And David, certainly it's something that, you know, we're always open to ideas at Ulster Hockey, so happy to take on and consider sort of going forwards. Next question then, and again it's possibly for Emma and Jeff on this occasion. Any helpful tips on income generation ideas as we move into step 1 and planning for step 2 of the executive plan, and both online and offline ideas? And I'll let Emma, if you want to come in first on that one.
I suppose there are things that can be done. The thing with fundraising at the moment is you're probably, if you come up with a good fundraising initiative for your club, you're likely competing with charities at the moment, because they're also shut down, and their fundraising activities have all really gone online, and people are taking up different types of challenges in order to do that. So you might just simply that you would likely be competing in that space. But again, if it's community based, it could pick up easily as well. Things like I'm not 100% sure what it is in Ulster at the moment, but I know here down in Galway where I am, it is a 5k radius. So you could, you know, I could go out and I could do a virtual 5k, like, you know, something like I suppose the Ross Barkley 5k challenge, where, you know, you would go and you would do your 5k and donate some money to charity. But I suppose you could set up a possible GoFundMe or something like that and do it for club, so that, you know, you could do a virtual 5k fun run for your club, things like that. That's one of the first things that springs to mind, really. But again, I think you'll be competing with charities a lot online at the moment. Jeff, have you any solid ideas there?
Yeah, I mean, I'll break it into 2 broad areas. For me, these are the times to identify what's your sponsorship program. So what's your assets? Have you a list of all the assets that you can sell? I've mentioned digital already, but you've got, and Emma mentioned the front of the shirt. So what's your asset register? And type down all those assets. Number 2, create a sponsorship presentation. Don't be going to a sponsor on the back of a fag packet saying, please, would you sponsor me? It's got to be a properly well produced with lovely photographs that links their objectives in with your objectives. So there's a real tight line. So what is your sponsorship presentation? And then number 3, who's your committee? Don't leave it to one person. And that committee cannot just be sponsorship. That committee must be membership, fundraising, sponsorship and grants, and you need to have several people that's aimed at each of those areas. So the second part, 2 quick ideas. A rugby club in Millwall, they went to a local Indian restaurant. Now I have to say this is before COVID-19, but the idea still is there. Went to the Indian restaurant and said, would you sponsor me? The Indian restaurant said no. They went back to them and said, well, what's your slowest day? And the slowest day was a Tuesday. So what they said, okay, if I drive people on a membership card to your place on a Tuesday, will you give me X%? Absolutely, no problem. Tuesday became their biggest day outside of the weekend. Outside of the weekend, that was their biggest day because they were driving their membership and they got funding. 2 years later, then they got a sponsorship from that Indian restaurant. Second one, so Crumlin United, where I'm involved in, again, I have to say it was pre-COVID-19, but instead of going out to a sponsor, bear in mind we're an amateur club, instead of going out to one sponsor to spend £1,000, £2,000, it was really difficult. So what we did is we went around Crumlin Village and we said, would you give us £50? So £50 is a lot better than £5,000. So what we did is we got £50 per person. And then they got every person got on their social media. They got offers to drive people in store, different bits like that. But each one got put into a draw. The first one out of the hat got the branding across the top. The second got the branding on the back. Third got into the training range. Fourth got onto a board at the ground. and there was so on and so forth. We raised £7,500 doing that, and 4 people did it. £7,500, and that's profit. That's profit. And the reason is it's easier to go to get £50 than it is to get 5,000. Now, I understand that's pre-COVID ideas, but the same principle can still last. The big issue will be is when will we all come back to play? Personally speaking, if it's this year, 2020, I will be amazed. I will be amazed. And I think now this is where we get back to the innovation. We have got to come up with different ways. So hockey, we need 2v2, 3v2. Oh, sacrilege, I hear people saying. But now is the time. There's a reason why basketball has gone into 3x3 pre-COVID-19, because all our games are changing. Now's the time to innovate and don't think just traditional. Yes, traditional is good, but now things are changing with the Generation Z. Now's the time to innovate and push forward.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Listen, before we started this, Kristen had a few ideas around this as well, so I'm going to invite her in if she has any sort of ideas maybe around her own club and around her own experience.
Say me, Mark. Yeah, me. Sorry.
Sorry, yes,
my connection's really bad here, so it's cutting in and out. So, no, just I think one of the key things for all of the members at the club at the moment is communication as well, and that, you know, they won't be meeting on a weekly basis as they generally would do. And I think it's important for you just to be keeping in contact with them and let them understand the challenges that the club has as well. And you know, if there is fundraising issues there and you are having to you know, monetary concerns, I think, you know, as a committee and as a community, people need to pull together now. So there are lots of people that will be in your club as well that maybe have experience in digital marketing, in fundraising, and maybe haven't stepped forward before, and this could be an opportunity for you to really pull in on them. So I had just jotted down a couple of different ideas. I know Emma had touched on the likes of the 5K run, and there's lots of things that you can do on a grassroots level that can go viral if it's designed really well. So as Jeff talks about being innovative, thinking outside the box and trying and come up with something that people are going to really engage with and be interested in. So the likes of the Virgin 5K, you know, everyone was all over social media putting up their 5 fingers, nominating their 5 people to take part and donating £5. There's lots of stuff in terms of grassroots that you can be doing to get parents involved. So as I said before, I've got 2 little boys, a 6-year-old and a 7-year-old, that love their hockey. They're out every day wanting to show off their skills. You could create an online competition, a challenge, using a specific hashtag, you know, lockdown skills or hockey lockdown, and just try and create and come up with something that they're going to create content for you to be able to share on your pages. One of the things that Emma said there was, whenever you're a sponsor, you know, it's so important to look at someone's website. The first thing that I will always do when someone comes to me is look at their social media. Just having a page on your social media is not good enough. You do have to have content, and you have to have, you know, engaging content, so that as a sponsor I can see, okay, well, they actually are active and they're active in the community and they're doing lots of different things. So again, it's trying to pull your community of people together that you have already and try and think outside the box. Throw loads and loads of ideas at it, and you might have 50 ideas and none of them make any sense, but out of those 50 ideas you may be able to pull 2 or 3 together and come up with something really strong and really good. As well, I wanted just to say, you know, a lot of people are afraid of marketing and afraid of digital marketing especially, and you know, I don't know how to use social media and I don't know how to create videos or content. There are so many free courses online now, so if you have someone within your community that's wanting to get involved and maybe wanting to step up but doesn't have the skill set, you can go on to the likes of Google Garage, if you just put that into Google, and they have lots of online free courses that will teach you how to use different tools to be able to really upskill the individual and to be able to enhance your social media. And there's so many of those now, lots of marketeers that are struggling, that are maybe out of work, are doing free webinars and seminars online. It's a great opportunity for anybody that wants to really start to drive their social media for their club. There's so much resource online to be able to do that.
Okay, thanks a lot, Chris, and hopefully a few ideas in there. Another wee question, there is time for another couple. I'll try and get wrapped up maybe about 4:30 at the latest. But I've had a question from Roisin Walsh. Hi Roisin, how you doing? Just, and this one again is probably Jeff. This is what happens when you make a suggestion, somebody quizzes you. But do you think the whole idea about innovating our game could be done on a club-by-club basis, even once we get back on the pitch, rather than wait on the FIH doing it?
Sticky subject. So I'll give the official line is go with the FIH, Hockey Ireland and Ulster Hockey. Definitely go with them. The unofficial, start it at your youth and do it yourself with other clubs and see where it goes. There's a reason why esports, why MMA all started the way that it started. It started because people wanted it and it created, and then it built up. I'm not saying forget about traditional sport. That's not what I'm saying. I am saying time now is to do these sort of new, and because of the Gen Z, you've got to look at the future people coming through and the way that they can not only consume content, but the way that they want content and sport played is very, very different than my generation, for example. So for me, I would say to unofficially, get a few clubs together or even start it at your club and see where it goes. That's what I would say. Yeah.
Okay, thanks a lot, Jeff. That's all very useful. And maybe, further to that, certainly cricket, very, very traditional sport, but now you have the various different codes, T20, all of these things that I'm sure 20 years ago would have been completely unthinkable within those sports. Okay, if anybody else have any further questions, or are we starting to wind down here? Sure, a number of us have possibly got sort of Zoom weariness anyway from all this. Okay, well listen, if nobody's got anything else to add, all I can do is thank everybody for logging in and listening to our panel. Big thanks to Jeff, Chris, Emma and Kristen for pulling this together, and to the guys who have contributed. And listen, all I can do is say thank you. Hopefully we'll see you all on the hockey pitch soon. We'll continue to engage where is required. And listen, have a nice weekend and look after yourselves. Okay, thank you very much.